Hello, viewers. I'm Reverend Ezekiel Thompson, and welcome to today's program, Kingdom Connections, connecting with men and women of God who are making impact in their communities, in their cities, and the world at large. I've got a very dynamic woman of God in the studio today. She's doing some awesome work in the community of London, and she has been traveling all over the place. You don't want to miss this. This is a very exciting interview that we're going to have now, and you need to call your friend. Don't switch a dial. Call your friend, call your neighbors. My guest today is the one and only Mrs. Hines. Welcome to the program, Mrs. Hines.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's a pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, Mrs. Hines, it's a long time I wanted to have you in the studio. I've been hearing about the work that you've been doing.
Okay.
Would you like? I know the viewers would like to know who is Mrs. Hines.
Okay.
Who is Mrs. Hines?
Well, first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here, and I would thank you so much. And I'd like to give thanks and praises to God Almighty.
Yeah.
Before I even start, who is Mrs. Hines? I'm just a mum and a grandma. I've worked in the community. I've got 4 children, and I have 1 grandchild.
Right.
And my profession, before I started getting into theatre, was I was a professional social worker,
Right.
specialising on child protection and mental health. And then I had an opportunity, and I retired early.
Wonderful.
So after I retired early, I then went to work in another local authority, and then took them to court for race discrimination, got some money, and decided to retire from the local authority.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your reason for retiring early, was that because you had made enough money? Why did you choose to?
Not at all. I started really in London Borough of Croydon, started fairly young.
Right.
And what I found is that a lot of the issues that were presented in child protection didn't incorporate African Caribbean people.
Right.
They were really outside of the perspective. So what I wanted to do is kind of raise the level of awareness, and I found that the members of staff were suffering a lot from bullying, harassment, racial discrimination, etc. And so it was almost like in a very natural way that I became involved in challenging different situations. And before I knew it, I started going to the Black Workers Support Group, then the Black Members in Unison, and I started representing people that were suffering from race discrimination in the department itself. So it wasn't planned at all. And funny enough, I started going to court, started winning cases, started doing this over, kind of built up a reputation.
Right.
And I think the Croydon Council wanted me out, to be quite honest. So they were glad to kind of, when the situation came up with the changes in the institution, they were quite glad to get rid of me. So they offered me voluntary redundancy, and I was so happy.
Wow.
So I thought, sometimes when you challenge the system,
yes,
and you know that that structure of system is wrong, you kind of become public enemy.
That's true.
And so what happened is, that's what happened to me. I thought to myself, if I'm going to go anywhere, I needed to go when I was on top.
Right.
So I thought to myself, yes, I decided to leave at that particular point,
Yes.
when I was at the top of my game in employment tribunal law. That kind of became more of the focus than social work and mental health.
Right.
Because I was kind of juggling the two within the council, and you can imagine the conflict, because at the end of the day the council were paying my wages, and here was I taking the same authority to court on a regular basis.
Wow. I love you. I love the way you deal. That's very good. You literally don't put up with foolishness.
I kind of got the situation of challenging for justice,
Right.
standing up to be counted,
Right.
going against all odds, and doing things which I felt were right.
Yes.
And at that particular time, I wasn't a regular person who went to church or anything, but there was something in my spirit that felt that some things were not quite right, and I had to stand there. And even if it meant standing on my own, then that's what I was prepared to do, because you run the risks of losing your job, being out of work, and things like that. But there's something that is much more fulfilling when you challenge or when you feel that you're doing something that is right.
Right.
So I kind of had that in me anyway, in relationship to that.
Do you have any past experience? I mean, that caused that passion? Was there something that you have seen in your childhood days experience that
I think maybe sometimes when you've gone through a lot in your childhood, you're kind of very passionate and fighting for the quests of justice and things like that.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that things are right. So I think there's a multiple of things. You know, I went very young. I went to Nigeria, got involved in the Biafran War, saw a lot of injustices there. So it's lots of different aspects of my life that has impacted me, that make me feel that this is not okay, and that I should challenge and stand up to be counted.
Right.
Yeah.
That's powerful. We're going to take a break, viewers, and we're going to come back. We're going to find out about the project that Mrs. Hines has been running, a dynamic play. It's going to be exciting. Stay tuned, and we'll see you shortly. God bless you. Welcome back to the program, viewer. Reverend Ezekiel Thompson here with my dynamic guest, Mrs. Hines. We have been speaking about, Mrs. Hines. We've been trying to get to know her. We are getting back into this in the second segment of this interview. Mrs. Hines is a great woman that's doing some awesome stuff in the community. Welcome back to the program, Mrs. Hines.
Thank you so much, Pastor.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Discussing in the first segment, and I get to know quite a bit about Mrs. Hines. Now, Mrs. Hines, we know you've been, after you left your career and went into retirement, we want to find out what's the next step? What was the next phase of your life when you left your work?
Okay. I think for me, you get to a point in your life where things are going really well. Well, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I had left. I had a little bit of money behind me. Started paying off my mortgage. Started relaxing, spending time with my children. And then what happens is something happens in your life that kind of changes that situation. And one of the things with my children, obviously, I was very much into education. I wanted my children to go to university, all of them, get them through the university. And that happened. And then a member of my family became unwell.
Right.
So I began to get a real close view of what goes on behind closed doors in a psychiatric hospital, from my professional experience, but also from my personal experience. So it wasn't until 25, maybe 30 years later that I decided to write a play, or 20 years later that I decided to write a play on what my experience had been.
Yes.
So at first I was, during that period of time, I was referred to a support group.
Right.
It was a support group from people that had had similar experiences. And we used to sit down once a month, and people would come and they would just talk about their experiences. I was quite shocked that so many people are actually having similar experience and not getting a lot of support.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, well, these stories are just mind-blowing, but who's hearing these stories? There's nobody here to hear them.
Yeah.
They're all in closed rooms, and then people will go out. Yes, it was very therapeutic, but then nobody's listening to them, nobody's hearing them.
Right.
So I said, well, look, why don't we try and do a conference or have some exposure on some of the experiences? And the stigma with mental health issues is so prominent that nobody wanted to put their name to anything of their stories. So I managed to interview people on the basis of being private and confidential. And I thought to myself, well, this is fantastic. With my social work experience, I would be sitting down talking to people. The first person I interviewed was a service user who had mental health problems, and instead of being 40 minutes, it took 2 hours. And to be quite honest, the person left, and I was on my floor again. I thought I had to rethink how to do this. And I think one of the issues is that people don't talk to people who have had mental health problems. And they don't get an opportunity to put out their side of the story. Because even within families, it's a lot of stigma and a lot of shame and a lot of guilt.
Right.
So people don't talk about these sorts of things.
Mm.
So I thought to myself, I've got to rethink, because I can't do this
Yeah.
because of the impact that it was actually having on me.
Right.
I was thinking to myself, this person has never spoken about it.
Mhm.
I'm opening up Pandora's box. What level of support am I going to be able to give when this person leaves my house? I hadn't really thought deeply enough about what's going to happen and what support I can personally offer. So then I discussed it with a friend, and she said, well, look, why don't you just do a play? I said, oh yeah, what do you mean a play? She goes, yeah, just do a play and see what actually happens in that. And I pondered over the idea, and then one afternoon she came up to my house. She said, right, speak.
Yeah.
I'll type, you tell me your story.
Wow.
And in that afternoon I wrote a script, and that was the birth of the play, So You Think I'm Crazy.
Take a break right there. This is so inspiring. We just got a background from Mrs. Hines. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to find out more about the play that Mrs. Hines has written. God bless you. See you shortly. Welcome back to the program, viewers. I'm Reverend Ezekiel Thompson, and we are on Kingdom Connections, looking at men and women of God who are making an impact in their communities, in their cities, and the world at large. I've got Mrs. Hines here, who she's an author. She has been writing plays, and she has been giving us a background of her life and what has been giving her the passion to do what she has been doing. Welcome back to the program, Mrs. Hines.
Thank you so much, Pastor.
So we left off, Mrs. Hines, where you have just given us a background of what birthed this passion of the play that you have now been writing. Tell us some more about the play.
Yeah, the birth of the passion comes from my heart. It comes from pain.
Right.
And it comes from the realness, the authenticity of what really happened.
Yes.
And so I believe that a lot of people carry a lot of pain in their heart.
Yes.
And if somebody actually starts to communicate with them, it can come out.
Right.
And so when this person came to my house and said, tell me your story, it flowed. And I didn't realise how much pain I was actually carrying until I put pen to paper.
Right.
And that's why I felt that it was written so quickly. I've never written a script before.
Right. You didn't have a degree in.
No. My profession was social work.
Wow.
So I don't know about theatre. And so I thought to myself, well, how do I start? What am I going to do? I've written the script. Who's going to be taking up this script?
Yes.
And this is on mental health as well.
Right.
And so there was a local organisation in Croydon called the BME Forum. And I thought the first thing I need to do is have space.
Yes.
And I said to them, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Can I use your premises so that we can actually hold auditions? And a person by the name who was working there at the time, her name was Risk.
Right.
She said, yes, I can use the premises for free, because she was a mental health worker there. So I attached myself to her.
Wow.
I had the local community come and help me. I didn't know anybody, so I got volunteers, and we put it out there in relationship to advertising. I was shocked at the amount of people that came from all across London.
Was that your first play?
This was my first and only play so far.
Right.
This was in 2014.
Right.
And they were coming, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, let's set up a panel inside the hall.
Yes.
So we kind of like the X Factor. We put an X there.
Yeah.
We had somebody at the door. We had somebody to take the person who was coming in. And then I thought to myself, what type of characters do I want in the play? Am I looking for people that have had a long history in academia? And I thought, no, I want real people. So I want them to be able to connect with what I connect with.
Wow.
So it was quite difficult to actually get people. So when we were doing the auditions, it wasn't just about reading parts of the script.
Right.
It was about, well, one of the scenes was, I said, okay, look, you're in a psychiatric hospital. I don't want you to say anything, but for a minute, I want you to just mime how that might feel.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
And then the other part was, okay, after that minute had finished, now I want you to mime after you've been given medication. How might that feel? And they did that. So I chose the people who could connect with the feelings.
Yes, yes.
And they didn't have to have any background experience of theatre and stage.
Right.
I wanted people that were going to be on a feeling and emotional level. And so we selected people, started having rehearsals at the BME Forum.
Yes.
And then I decided that because mental health is so much in the back door, I wanted the first opening to be at the town hall in Croydon, which is a wonderful arena, because sometimes when you get these plays, they're in the back door.
Yes.
And things, but mental health is already under the carpet.
Right.
It's already in the back door. So I wanted it out there. I wanted to blow off Pandora's box.
Right, right.
A lot of these people that I interviewed, I got 13 cast members, young black people and white people,
Right.
to come into this play, and then I was systematically doing rehearsals with them.
Powerful.
Yeah,
Powerful.
in terms of linking the story with what they wanted. And the main character is called Mr. X. And I thought Mr. X has to be somebody very special.
Right.
We interviewed so many young black men, and it was the last one
Wow.
that was able to catch my eye. And that's because he had a little bit of background about looking after his brother who had difficulties.
Right, right.
And also he could just connect with the character. And so he was the first Mr. X, and we've had several more since.
Right.
His name was Nabenzel. We had Menashe, and we've got Paul at the moment. I wanted the mayor to be there, so I got the mayor to come along. And I thought to myself, we put it on Eventbrite. I had no idea how I was going to get the money to present this.
Welcome back to the program, viewers. We just spoke with our beloved Mrs. Hines, and she has been telling us about her first written play way back in 2000, in the 2000 and I think 2013, and 2013-14, and she has been creating waves. Now, welcome back to the program, Mrs. Hines. You were telling us about your play that that sold out. Even Bright, you went and Even Bright, and
yes.
What
correct.
happened?
What happened was that I thought to myself, I have no money. I have no grant.
Yes.
I have no application.
Right.
How am I going to make this work? And then I thought to myself, a lot of people were saying, well, go to the big lottery, go to the Arts Council, you can get big money for this. And I thought to myself, this play is so controversial. It's so real. And once you start going to an organisation for money, you start to compromise on the content of the play.
That's right.
So I thought to myself, no, let this play establish first. If they want to throw money at me afterwards, that's fine. But the story must be told as it is. So sometimes what I've learnt from the process of my journey is what you sow, so shall you reap.
Right.
When I was in Croydon Council, if you remember, I was representing people for racial discrimination.
Yes.
My name was out there. When they and I've also learnt something from you. I've learnt about favour.
Right.
And people, the person who owned the town hall said to me, look, I remember you. I remember all the people that you were representing, and not one penny did you charge. I'm going to let you have this hall free of charge on one condition. Make it work. Make it be a success, because there's so many people that are suffering from mental health. It's over to you. And he gave me that hall free. And then he said, you want the mayor to come? Unfortunately, you have to use the mayor cafeteria. for their food, which came up to about £1,000. I thought, well, how am I going to get £1,000
Right.
when I don't even have anything? I wasn't even working at the time.
Mm.
So what happened is that they did the catering and they lost the invoice.
Mm.
And they didn't charge me to have the mayor to be there at that time. The first opening of at the town hall Croydon was superb.
Right.
It raised all my expectations, and we had over 300 people there.
Mm.
And that's the beginning of the journey of So You Think I'm Crazy. But I also need to tell you that this is not an ordinary theatre company.
Right.
Because if I'm going to influence other people in relationship to raising the issues of mental health that happens in our community, I've also got to be very protective of the cast members.
Yes.
Because they're getting into characters of people that have got mental health concerns.
Right.
These people may not have suffered from it. They may have members of their family. They may have seen it. But at the end of the day, how do I know that what's going to trigger off in them?
Mm.
So what we have, we insist that after each rehearsal session and play, we have a group discussion
Right.
on emotions of how people felt.
Right.
And so we have about 13 young people, mainly young black men,
Yes.
for the
Yes.
first time that talk about how they felt
Mm-hmm.
about certain things, because the play covers social issues of domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
sexual abuse,
Yes.
stop and search,
Right.
bereavement, things like everyday things.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, I don't know. It's very difficult for anybody not to have experience an element of that in their lives.
Right.
And so therefore, if they're going to be there on stage acting that and watching that all the time, I've got to make sure that they're okay. And how I make sure of that is that we have a debriefing session. So we have a therapeutic that's why we call it therapeutic theatre, is that we talk about how that has impacted. How does it make you feel? So basically, we've had, part of the cast members opening up about themselves, about some of their childhood experiences, and this is so it's therapeutic for the cast members,
Right.
and it's therapeutic for the audience, because we insist that after the audience have seen the play,
Yes.
that there has to be questions and answers.
Mm.
We've had professional people on the panel.
Right.
Dr. Deji A. Runde has been very instrumental
Right.
of being part of the
Is
panel.
he a psychologist?
He's a
doctor?
psychiatrist.
Yeah,
Psychiatrist. And he bought into the play, bought into the vision.
That's good.
Came to our rehearsal sessions,
That's beautiful.
and also recommended that we go and do the play in Birmingham at the Royal Institute of Psychiatry,
Wow.
one of their international conferences. That was in 2015.
So did you say the first play was in 2014?
The first play that we had was in Croydon 2014,
Right.
but it's built up to now 2017 because obviously, and we've just covered a majority of the fringe theatres. We've been to Catford Broadway, we've been to
You have taken it almost all over London?
all over London with no budget. Wow. Sometimes we get a charity that may give us something, like the
Yes.
Maudsley Hospital,
Yes.
very small budget, but the same cast members, the majority of them, have been with me since 2014. And so for them, it's an experience and almost like raising levels of awareness.
Right.
Because the play is about the impact of mental health and racism.
So what's your main aim and objective in taking these plays all over? What do you
I think for me, having seen the disproportionality
Yes.
of young black men in psychiatric hospitals and in the criminal justice system. We're talking about across the UK. We're not just talking about Croydon. Everywhere you go,
Yes, yes.
young black men are being detained either in custody or psychiatric hospitals. 95%
Wow.
of our population is being in that way for one reason or the other.
Is there a reason behind all of that?
Well,
exercise?
I think there's many reasons. There's many social reasons.
Yes.
The lack of fatherhood,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of perhaps a faith,
Yes.
the not being understood, not having a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, having the impact of discrimination, racism, and not knowing how to manage that. You know, children get in all sorts of situations in gangs and things,
Yes, yes.
not really being able to express themselves, not having anybody to talk to. And I think that that's where sometimes the church has failed.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest to say that. Because sometimes we pretend within the church facility that everything is okay, and everything is not okay. Because if we exclude our young people because they don't fit, then what are we saying?
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, so for me, what I'm trying to get back to your question, the objective is for me is to raise the level of awareness about what families suffer, and to be able to, particularly what families suffer in terms of mental health, and for other people to understand that, you know, we have to engage with this sector of the community as well. So it's a raising of the level of awareness of the pain of mental health.
Powerful, powerful. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Miss Science?
You know, I didn't even see myself here now.
Yes.
I didn't even see myself in 2017
Right.
because we're next at the Oval Theatre. I let God guide me
That's powerful.
because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I give thanks and praises to God
Right.
for directing me. And I ask for capacity, and I ask for wisdom,
That's right.
and I ask for direction. So 5 years, I leave it in God's hand.
Right.
And I just take one step at a time.
Amen. What's the latest show that you have?
The latest show that we
That's
have,
coming up.
because we've been to quite a few places as mentioned before, is going to be at Oval House.
Right.
And that is in Kennington. And that is on the 18th, the 20th and the 21st of September. We're going to go to Catford Broadway on the 4th of November.
Right.
And then we're going to be playing at a church for Black History Month, and that's on the 7th of October. That's the Judah Church
Right.
in Battersea.
That's right.
So all of this information will be put on our website, which is www.knowmymind.org.
Powerful. Mrs. Science, we could go on and on. Thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you so much, sir.
I have to have you back here for some reason. I think you're so inspirational. I've got to have you back in the studio. Viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. And I want to thank Mrs. Hines so much for that inspirational interview. So You Think I'm Crazy. That's the play she has written for couple from 2014 till now. She has been going all over London, and this play was birthed from the pain that she has been through in life and stuff like that. Sometimes in your life, the things that you're going through, you should never despise what you're going through, the process you're going through, because out of the pain can be birthed greatness.
Wow.
Out of your pain, greatness can be birthed. So through the process you're going through, the only way out of that is just to go through it.
Yes.
Don't avoid it. Go through the process, and when you get on the other side, I'm telling you, you're gonna rejoice. You will be like those that dreamt. God bless you, and see you next week at the same time. I'm Reverend Ezekiel Thompson, and I thank my host, Mrs. Hines. God bless you.
Thank you so
and
much,
thank you
sir.
again. God bless
Thank you,
sir.
Pastor. Thank you.
Wonderful.
God bless you too.